Hey Boo Bears! This is Bits of Banter with Antoinette, and today we are going to go over the new Netflix show, The Later Daters. It's basically Netflix's answer to ABC's Golden Bachelor, except like a mix of, what is it? Like a mix of, what was it called? Indian Matchmaker, Golden Bachelor, and Love is Blind type of thing. Was executively produced by Michelle Obama. Ooh, love that, love that, love that, right? So we're gonna get into it. Also, please like and subscribe and leave your comments down below. Let's get into it. Premises is that these are middle 50-year-olds to I think like 70-year-olds. In the first episode, we only meet three of the different main characters or daters. Okay. What's gonna go happen is that they go on blind dates that are matched for them from a dating coach. And this dating coach is actually, I think she is the CEO or something of Hinge. And she also has like a PhD in like behavioral psychology, stuff like that. But she gives like advice to the daters before they go on their dates. So let's first meet our first person that we meet, which is Suzanne. She's 63. Her husband, she lost her husband, Chris. She was married for 27 years and she has 3 children. And in this episode, we get to see her daughter, who's like really bubbly, but Suzanne is like a firecracker. She's really bubbly. She has really like nice silver hair. She's funny. She has this like kind of Southern charm and big hair. She meets with the dating coach first, and the dating coach tells her a really good tip. And it's actually something that I naturally use, even just in like normal day-to-day stuff. If you're and the tip was that if you are like going on a date or any other situation and like there's kind of a, it's hard, this whole small talk, the whole small talk there, it's hard to get the conversation started. She said, do something like, let's say you were listening to a podcast on the way. Say like, oh, hey, I was listening to this podcast and it's about this, blah, 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 blah. And have you heard that before? It gets people to start talking about something that just like isn't too serious, but gets them interested. And I used to do this. I mean, this is something I do all the time where I'm like, oh, have you watched this movie or have you watched this show? Oh, did you hear about this? And it just gets things to be like light. But it's also just something that like, okay, something that we can talk about and that gets this conversation started, which makes everyone feel more comfortable. And then it just gets things rolling. So she ends up going on a date with a guy named Frank. And I think he's only like 2 years older than her, like 65. He also has like silvery hair. What I found to be so flipping cute was that he tried to like tell her something and she was like, oh, wait, I have something to tell you. I was listening to a podcast about Matthew McConaughey. What's even funnier about that is that she didn't listen to a podcast about Matthew McConaughey. She just really loves Matthew McConaughey. So she just like brought that up. And then you could kind of tell she was making up. She was kind of making it up as she goes. She's like, oh yeah, I was listening to this thing about Matthew McConaughey and it was something like about like green lights. And I was like, what? And honestly, in the end, I don't really feel like it worked fully. And honestly, I don't feel like it worked because there was still some awkward silence. But at the same time, in the end, they ended up like having just amazing conversation and like getting, I don't know, like I feel like they had a lot of amazing chemistry. The only thing is that Suzanne didn't like was that he actually has children that are 16 and 19. And she's like, I am not interested in raising any kids or dating anyone who's raising kids. Because her children are older and, she's not raising them anymore. So that's where she was like, oh, but you could tell Frank was so excited. Oh my God, Frank was so excited. And in the end, the daughter came and he had tried to ask for her number. And then when they did his whole like interview after the date, he was like, oh, I should have gotten her number. But like her daughter came in and I forgot. He's like, oh no. It was just so cute. It was so cute. And then later on in the episode, he ended up finding her on Facebook and writing her. And it was so, so cute. It was so, so cute. And then her daughter was like, oh, do you want to like write him? And she was like, no, I'm going to think about it. I was like, okay, girl. And then when she met up with the dating coach again, and when she talked to her, she was like, oh, you know what? I tried, your tactic and, he tried to talk to me, but I was like, no, wait, hold on. Honestly, it was just adorable. I'm loving this. Okay, then the next person that we meet is Nate. He's 56. He also was married for a bit, but he was divorced. His thing is that he has an ex-girlfriend or an ex like fling. I can't remember her name, but she shows up and they're best friends. But when they were in college, they were like sleeping together, just like slept together for like 3 weeks and got pregnant. So they have a child together, but they never dated or like were married. She is around all the time. They are best friends. It honestly is like giving that they should be together. And I hope they address this because I'm like, I probably think one of the sticklers in you finding someone is that this person is around all the time. This goes around all the time. At first, my first thought about Nate is that he's very, very rigid. Very, very rigid. His house is beautiful, but you can tell he is like, he used to be a paratrooper. He got injured, so he has like an injury on his leg and hip. You can't really tell sometimes when he's standing and walking, except like when he's going up the stairs. But he is just, you can tell that he is very set in his ways. Very set in his ways. When he meets with the dating coach, she ends up telling him, I can tell that you are pretty much very set in your ways. Like when people marry earlier, it's like when they're younger and you're married or dating, it's like a startup, like you guys, the company is going to be building together. But when you date or marry later, it's like a merger because the two companies are already kind of set in stone. And so you're trying to find ways to merge these two these two companies. And I was like, I thought that was a really good example. I was like, Nate, that's Nate. I feel like his red flag is that he just seems very set in stone, as well as his best friend, which I'm like, that's going to be an issue for a lot of people if this woman is around all the time. And it seems like she like literally will drop by on her lunch break, stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people aren't going to like that. But the dating coach gave him advice. And her advice was that people open up more when you are vulnerable. And she's like, so I want you to find one thing that you're willing to be vulnerable with during the date and say that to the person that you're dating. So he goes on a date with a person named Latricia, who's 56 as well. And so during this, you're trying to figure out what is he going to be vulnerable about, Pretty much Latricia, he brings flowers for her, which I thought was really cute. Latricia's very, very beautiful. Seems really serious as well. But she's loving like everything he's saying. Like one time he asked, like, oh, do you pray? And she said, oh, a God-fearing man as well. And so they pray together. His vulnerable moment was that she said that she likes to jog and like maybe they could jog together. And he said, well, actually, because he sustained an injury, he really can't jog. And he viewed that as his vulnerable moment, which I felt like was really interesting because that was something that's something he said in the beginning, that he sustained an injury. And it is something that's not fully obvious, but kind of obvious with the way he walks, that like he has an injury, So I felt like it was very interesting that the thing that was kind of physically obvious was his vulnerable moment, was he's like, oh, I can't jog, which I thought would be kind of obvious because of his injury. But at the same time, I can see how some people might notice it, but really might not clock that, oh, he can't jog. And maybe that's something that he would normally just be like, oh no, I don't want to jog or something. I just wonder like how that, like you would have to bring that up at some point. That's what I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, I'm not really sure how that makes him vulnerable, because at some point you'd have to bring this up. It's not something that you can really hide. Then I thought that was cute because at the end of the day, they like exchange numbers, and then he asked to take a selfie with her. He's like, this is something that we could commemorate our, first meeting together. Latrice really, really likes him. And she literally, when her confessional, she was like, no, I really like him. He's this, he's that, he's God-fearing, he's this. And I was like, wow, okay. But then when you got to him, he said, I'm not really religious, I'm spiritual. So he's like, so I can't wait to meet someone that will check all my boxes. And I was like, wait, but you're the one who brought up praying. And like, I'm surprised he didn't say that in the date when she was like, oh, you're God-fearing. He didn't say anything. But later he was like, well, I'm spiritual, not religious. I was like, but you came off religious. So I just felt like that was really interesting. Did you guys clock that as well? And then our last person, not least, is Anise. She's 62, gorgeous, gorgeous woman, gorgeous. She also used to be married. Her husband died. You do get to meet her daughter. She is somebody that she says where she tends to like cut things off really easy. Like people normally don't even get to a third date. She seems to find issues with them right away, which it seems like there's a part of me that feels like she's still very much hung up on her husband, on her deceased husband, you know? And so I think that's where nobody can really take the place of him. And one of the things that the coach had told her was to try to keep like an open mind, but also one of the things that Anees said is that a lot of time her issue is that like she is very well established. She, I think, is like director of marketing or something. She has a PhD. She, you know, she's very successful. And a lot of times she finds that men are very intimidated by her because of that. And so and she finds that a lot of times she feels like she has to dim her light, which I'm like, we've all been there. I feel like all of us girls have been there before, where it does feel like men can't handle your success. And I know I've been there. It took me a long time to find somebody or not a long time, but it took me time to find somebody that was like, really championed my success and really loved how smart I was and intellectual, like really loved those things about me and really loved how driven I was. And there can just be a lot of men out there that just are intimidated by that. And so that's what she was saying. The dating coach ended up talking about how she was like, you know what I want you to do is to not dim your light and to, on your first date, bring up your successes, because we want to weed those guys out. And it's like, yes, girl, we want to weed the men out. We want to weed the men out that are going to be trying to dim our lights. So I'm glad she said that. She's like, we want you to meet somebody that loves that about you and that is going to champion that. And I was like, yes, queen. Yes. Very Michelle Obama. Very Michelle Obama. Okay. So she goes on her first date with George. And tell me, honestly, George, what the actual fuck was this? What the actual fuck was this? And guys, Michelle, I'm going to breathe, because I'm going to believe that they're not going to do our girl Anees like this. I'm going to believe that they're not going to do our girl Anees like this, because this date was all the way fucked up. All the way fucked up. Okay. So George is 60. And when she walked in, I'm not sure what happened, but he made some type of weird face where he was like, and I'm like, I was like, did he just roll his eyes? Or was that like him being like, oh my God, she's gorgeous. You know what I mean? Or was it like, not another gorgeous girl? I don't know. But I do think it was that he thought she was gorgeous, because he seemed very enamored. He was like, he even ended up saying it in his confessional that he was like, she is gorgeous. And he was really, really liking her. But this man was a whole bunch of red flags, a whole bunch of flipping red flags. Okay. First, he ends up saying to her, he's like touching her a lot. And I was like, fucking chill. Like, keep your paws off Anees, okay? Keep your paws off Anees. But then he ends up talking about how he dates in Chattanooga, but then he fucks around in Atlanta. Pardon-moi? Pardon-moi? Excuse the fuck out of me? What? I was like, how old are you, sir? And even Anees was like, trying to be so kind. She was like, and he's like, yeah, I like ghetto women. I like a little ghetto in them. And he's like, I like the blonde wigs. I was like, what makes blonde wigs ghetto? Like, what? And then he ended up being like, oh, I can tell you have a little ghetto in you. Oh, no, Anees does not. Anees does not have any ghetto in her, okay? I'm going to need you to chill back. And she is trying to be so kind, but you could tell she's uncomfortable. You can tell she is uncomfortable. Like, he was just I was literally about to be like, you need to put that drink down, sir, because you are getting too comfortable. I feel like whatever he had in his glass was making him go all the way crazy, okay? Was making him go all the way crazy. Literally at one point, Anees was like, oh, you know what? Actually, my Uber's here. So I gotta go. He's like, oh, the night is young. And she's like, oh, the night's young. She's like, I'm trying to get the fuck out of here. Okay? I'm trying to get the fuck out of here. And she did. And she finally did. But like, literally, that whole scene was absolutely wild. And I'm gonna need them to come correct and bring bring an actual gentleman for her. Okay? No more of this bull. Because that guy was not a gentleman at all. Like, I was flabbergasted by the things that he was saying. And this was like, what I told you is just the most like parts. There was more. Okay, so that was episode 1, guys. I'm invested. I'm invested. What about you? I'm excited for episode 2. I will be covering that, and I'm also going to be covering the new South African show on Netflix, as well as The Ultimatum is coming out in a few days on the 4th of December. We have so much, as well as Southern Charm is coming out on Friday. Oh my God, it is going to be a busy week, and I also have work. Oh, okay, I'm excited. Okay, but please like and subscribe and leave your comments down below. I love these little chats of ours. Love you, mean it. Bye.